Okay, welcome to the podcast. I am hanging out with Rebekah Goedbloed. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you did.
What's the Dutch one, did you say?
Goedbloed.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody hears that on my husband's side of the family, it's going to have to be corrected.
So I have you down. So we've done this podcast before.
Yes.
So it's fun to kind of come back and just kind of see where you're at on your kind of journey. I put you down as amateur boxer, but you're a lot more than that. How would you describe yourself? Who are you?
Pretty amateur boxer. I think they classify us as amateur boxers as soon as we register and get our books and stuff like that. But I have a long way to go to be like a decent boxer. I'm an old lady trying, but yeah.
So let's talk about your upcoming challenge, and then I want to kind of go back to the beginning and just kind of get a refresher of how you got to where you are.
Okay.
Because we were talking before we hit the record button, and oftentimes people just kind of see the end result, right? And so for you, I think what's inspiring is you're in a place in your life where you probably 4 or 5 years ago never imagined you'd ever be.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. I think my whole life I felt like I was one way, one person, one type of person, would live one type of life. Mm-hmm. And the life I have now, who I am now, how I live now, is contrary to everything that I ever thought about myself.
In a good way?
In a great way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting in January, you are going to be training for another boxing match.
Yeah.
You were supposed to... your last one was supposed to be a one and done. Most people have come to terms with the fact that you're doing it again. Your daughter's still on the fence.
She's not on the fence. She's way on the other side of the fence,
she
glaring.
hates it?
Yeah. Oh, hates it. Hates it. Yeah.
So talk about the match that's coming up.
So it's a charity boxing event at the Palace Theater downtown. It'll be end of March, beginning of April. This time, it's the same event that I participated in 2 years ago. So I know a little bit more about what to expect. It's a big night. They have, it's like a professional. They have the lights. They have the intro music. There's probably 2,000 people in the crowd. And it feels very like MMA style, octagon drama. Yeah, it's pretty spectacular the way they put the event on, what it looks like, how it feels. Yeah. So I am going to, again, try and train with a different mindset going into it, because this is officially going to be my last one.
Right.
I promised.
So what does training look like for something like this? And the fact that you've been through it, does that make it easier or harder knowing what you're about to put yourself through?
The before, right now, I'm in my head a lot. It's harder knowing what's coming up, knowing... because it was, I think when I went into it the first time, I had no idea how intense it was, how emotional it was, how challenging some of the days would be. And I didn't expect much from myself.
Right.
This time going into it, I know how hard it's going to be. I know there are going to be things that I have to push through. I know getting hit in the face really hurts. And, now I have expectations of myself. Now I have, rather than just get through it, I want to excel at it. So I have more pressure on myself, just from myself.
So what does, on a day-to-day or a week-to-week training program, what does that look like for you then?
So for the fight training itself, they ask that you commit to, it's I think 2 hours a day on 2 days a week. Okay. So it's only, the minimum commitment is about 4 hours a week. And I know from last time that that's not enough for me.
Right.
I think one of the things that I discovered about my personality is it's 100% or forget it.
Yeah.
So I kind of disappear into it for the full 3 months.
Yeah.
I train as many days as I can, as much as I can to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
So when I start, I'll start 4 or 5 days a week.
Nice.
And I'll do an hour, then 2 hours, then an hour, then 2 hours. I only take 1 or 2 rest days. And I think generally they'll start to throw in some extra sessions or extra training shortly before the fight. I start watching videos. I do stuff at home. Whatever I can do to give myself the best chance.
Right. So when you say training, 2 hours twice a week, that's at the gym.
Yeah.
And then what else would they like? Is it a lot of cardio? You were saying not really a lot of weights. I was thinking there'd be a lot of weight training, but not so much for you guys.
No, it surprised me, but yeah, because I was expecting more weightlifting. So you kind of do. We did. There would be like a sports performance day where you're doing like functional movements. A lot of squats, a lot of like muscle strengthening, but not muscle building. So we didn't lift weights.
Yeah.
We didn't want to build muscle mass because it takes more energy to move the muscle mass.
Right.
So you kind of lean out, get defined, work on your cardio significantly. Yeah. There are some challenges for me. Like one of the areas that I know I will never have adequate skills to be successful in boxing is footwork. Okay. Leg work. I have one leg that doesn't move, that doesn't function.
Yeah.
I cannot be fast on my feet. I can't be nimble. I can't dance in. I can't dance out. I can't, I step heavy and I plant and I'm solid, and that's not efficient for boxing.
Right.
So I have to figure out how to compensate in other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was supposed to be. Sorry, you were never supposed to be doing a second match.
Nope.
The first one, as I was saying, was supposed to be a one and done.
Yeah.
So what happened where you knew or you thought, okay, I got to do this again? What happened in the first time?
So the first time, when I started training, my goal was to get through the training. Okay. I didn't think about the fight. That wasn't part of my goal. That wasn't part of what I was considering. I just wanted to see if I had worked on myself enough or was healthy enough to train like an athlete for 3 months to get through that kind of conditioning. So by the time I got into the ring, before the first punch had been thrown, I'd already achieved that goal.
Right.
So the fight for me wasn't the focus. And then in the third round, there was a moment, and I thought, our first 2 rounds were good. I know I fought my best. I was not winning either way, but I did the best that I could.
Right.
In the third round, there was a moment where I thought I heard the bell, and I don't know if somebody hit the bell table. I don't know if it was just in my head. I don't know, but I dropped my hands and I was done. I went to go congratulate my opponent, give her a hug, and she went to take a punch at me, and I was like, oh, it's not over, it's not done. But I never kind of got back into the adrenaline, the push that you have when you're in the middle of something like that.
Right.
So I knew when I got out of the ring, I didn't finish the fight to the best of my ability. So when I made the goal, it was to get through the training. But I think by the time I got to the fight, it had changed without me realizing it to finishing strong. Yeah. And I didn't finish strong. So I kind of thought, well, you just work through it and you take what it was and you did your best. Yeah. But that you did your best thing kept kind of circling in my head because no, I didn't. I didn't get there the way that I wanted to get there. And I thought I would be able to let it go. And 6 months later, it was still turning around in my head that I didn't finish it. Yeah. I didn't finish it as strong as I could have. So then last year, when they put out the call for fighters, I thought I need to do it again. Yeah. And it wasn't so much about the training. It was about doing all of it. Yeah. The training, the fight, finishing strong, doing the best that I could do. So then I had to beg my daughter for permission to do it one more time.
And so she begrudgingly gave you permission to do it one more time? Is she planning to come to watch or No. So both of my kids actually. So both my son and my daughter hated when I signed up the first time. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. They often would try and be somewhere else in the house when I got home after sparring in case there was bleeding or anything was damaged. They didn't want to know. They didn't want to confront it. They didn't want to deal with it. Right. So my son's 20, my daughter's 18. And then one night my son had a couple of beers with his friends and he came home. And for the kids, actually, it's funny because they both hate it, but it's a point of pride for them that I've done it. They both tell all their friends about it. They talk about it frequently. So my son was talking to his friends about it.
and he decided he wanted to see it. And my
Yeah.
husband had recorded it. So I showed him the videos of the fight, and I don't think I've actually even watched the full thing. And he thought it was amazing. And so he looked at me and he was like, you need to do it again.
Yeah.
My daughter has never watched it. She doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to hear about it. She doesn't want to know about it. She knows it's happening, and that's it. But neither of them would be okay going to an event like that, watching their mom stand there and get, well, not hopefully move, but
Yeah.
and take hits to
Right.
the face. Neither of them could do it. So my son is more excited about it, and I know he'll watch it on the video after when he sees that I'm okay.
Yeah.
My daughter will probably never watch it.
Yeah.
Never, never, never. And that's okay. I don't think that's something they need to see.
Yeah. No, it's your own personal journey.
Yeah.
So I want to really back up, and again, you've been on the podcast before, so we talked about it. But I want to give people a context of really where you came from, because, like I said, a few years ago, you're at a point now where you never would have imagined you to be.
No.
What for you was, maybe describe what maybe rock bottom was for you, and how the heck did you decide to kind of go on this journey? I'm really curious.
I think there were two significant events that sort of pushed me to try to be more than I thought I could be. I have had weight issues my whole life. I've struggled with eating disorders. I've struggled with bullying. I was always overweight. I was probably in grade 12 when I graduated high school. I had probably already topped like 250 pounds. And I just gained weight continuously throughout my life. And after I had my kids, I had gone up to probably 350, 360 pounds. And then I had a significant health event. So I developed a DVT in my left leg, which is a blood clot that ran from my pelvis to my ankle. My leg turned black. It was 4 times its regular size. And called an ambulance, took me to the hospital. And the doctor sort of told my family there that my chances of survival were not good. They should probably be making some plans, because with a clot that significant, that devastating, the chances of a piece of it breaking off and going to the heart or the brain and having either an embolism or an aneurysm were like significant, like 80 to 90% sort of guaranteed. For whatever reason, I was lucky. That never happened. They never moved. The clot sort of solidified in my leg. It just turned into scar tissue. So the leg, that leg is always probably twice the size of my other leg. It's always a little bit blue. And there is like a chronic pain condition involved there. But when I lost sort of the use of that leg, it was full. From the hospital, I actually went to live with my aunt and my uncle for a period of time because I was not functional. I couldn't get up to get myself water. I couldn't get myself to the washroom. I couldn't feed myself. And she had a bungalow and she was a nurse. So they took care of me for several weeks out of the hospital. And during that time, my family sort of took my 2-story house and made it livable for me. So they put a bed in my living room on the main floor, and they made it somewhere that I could survive. And then I was finally able to kind of go home, but I was still like my shower was on the 2nd floor of my house. I couldn't get there. I couldn't get outside of my house. On my own. We had to kind of come up with a mobility scooter because I wasn't physically capable of walking. And there were days like, my kids came home and there was like a roller skating day at school and they didn't tell me about it. And I asked why, and they were like, well, you can't go, you can't take us. And so I was 100% in the care of my husband, my children who were very young and grew up sort of knowing that they had to get mom her water, or they had to do this, they had to do that. And I wasn't doing for them. They were taking care of me. My mom, my brother and his wife, my nieces, my aunts, my uncles, my cousin, they all took care of me to the point where I could survive. And I got to the point where I was in the wheelchair. I was on disability leave for 2 years. I couldn't work. And I probably topped 450 pounds. I kind of stopped weighing myself at some point.
Right.
But there was no life. I was very depressed. I spent a lot of time, like I was in bed or on the couch. You know, I kind of watched TV. My kids would go to school. My husband would go to school or work. And I was alone, not able to take care of myself, not able to function, and not having anything outside of my home. So nothing to talk about, nothing interesting happening. I was just there, just breathing and going through the day until the next day. And it was like that every day. And I started realizing that that wasn't enough for me. And I probably started trying before the second major event happened. And I got to a point where, like, I started doing rehab programs through Alberta Health Services and trying to get some movement back to that leg. And over time, I got to the point where I could sort of walk with a cane. And then I was eventually able to go back to work. I worked at the University of Calgary at the time. And I was able to go back to work. And I lost a little bit of weight, not much. I was still, between 380 and 425 pounds on a regular basis, and walking hurt with a chronic pain condition in my left leg. Essentially what they say is that leg kind of for the rest of my life will be dying. Like, it will never have regular blood flow. And when you don't have the circulation, the limb dies. And they talked about that significantly at that point, because what happens with a DVT like this is you get what's called post-thrombotic syndrome. And I have reduced blood flow to that leg. They feel like, what could happen at some point is with the reduced blood flow, the leg starts to ulcerate, and you get open ulcers on the limb that don't heal because there's no blood flow.
Right.
And then at some point, they talk about removing the limb. So at that point, they were talking to me like that was a certainty. At some point, I was going to lose the leg. And I had a doctor say to me, like, at 400 pounds, learning to walk on a prosthetic is probably going to be the most excruciating pain if you survive, like the limb removal, the surgery, because at that weight, surgery is life-threatening. So it sort of was a bit of a wake-up call. Like, not only had I lost my life outside of my home, my family had lost me engaging in any sort of happy, active life or being fully present. Now I was looking at losing physical pieces of my body. So I started to try, but I never felt like I was strong enough. I never felt like I was special enough. I didn't really feel like I was going to be successful in any way. But I made progress, and I got a little bit better. And then my dad suddenly passed away, had a heart attack. He was 63, diabetic, and like me, well over 400 pounds. And I had that moment, that thought where I thought, that's my future. Like, I'm going to be over 400 pounds. I'm going to have one leg, and I'm just going to, like, way too young, because it's not old enough. That'll be it. That'll be my whole life, just sitting in this couch until I die. And that was sort of the push I needed to be something else. So then I started looking into gastric bypass surgery. I had tried to lose weight, every conceivable way, every fad diet, every eating disorder, everything. I tried it. Most of them would work for a period of time, and then they wouldn't. And then you would gain more weight back, and then you would feel defeated and beaten, because this thing worked for all of these people, but it doesn't work for you.
Right.
No matter what you tried. So I started looking into the gastric bypass surgery, which was terrifying because it's not something you can reverse, and the complications of it are significant. And even just the lifestyle changes it forces are significant. Things like you can't take Advil again. You can't drink carbonated beverages. You can't, like, all of these little things.
Like, ever again?
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Not ever. I do it,
Yeah.
but I swish everything around in my mouth until it's flat before I swallow it, because the carbonation puts pressure on your reduced stomach, so
Oh, wow.
you can cause damage. But yeah, no NSAIDs. There's a lot of different side effects that happen when you undergo something like that, and you can't undo it. And I went through the program, considering the bypass, and it took me more than a year to decide that I was desperate enough, that I needed to do this, big, irreversible, huge thing in order to save my life. And for me, I owed the people that never stepped away. My husband, even when I stopped sort of being his wife, he never wavered. He was there. My kids were there. My mom was there. My brother was there. His wife was there. My aunts were there. My cousins were there. My friends were there. And they never quit. They never gave up. I owed them the same. So I committed to it, and I went again, and I had the bypass. And it was insanely difficult. The recovery was brutal. I remember 6 or 7 months post-op crying to my husband and saying, I did this to save my life, and it's going to kill me. Like, I can't survive this. I can't survive this healing. There were a lot of complications after the fact, and things were difficult. And I joined a support group online, and it said something like, when everybody was talking about, do you regret it, or do you feel like it was the right choice? There was one person who posted a comment online that said, don't think about it for a year. Don't think about whether this was a mistake. Don't think about whether you did the right thing. Just get through your days. Do it for a year, and then a year look back and think about where you were and where you are. And so I sort of put it all away, and I just tried. I tried to make all the changes. I tried to do all of the things. And then a year later, it was already totally different. I had lost probably 150 pounds in the first year. I was walking without a cane. It was working. So that was sort of my starting point and my rock bottom was when I lost the leg, and then when I lost my dad. And yeah, that sort of desperate feeling to be something else. Yeah.
So you're at that point, and one of the things that, everybody has a rock bottom like that for you was yours, and that's really, it's, you're at a low point.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. How do you go from that? And even like with the operation and stuff like that, what made you decide to keep going? And so for some people that would have been enough. Okay, I've made this change, but you kept kind of thinking about what else can I do? So maybe talk about that process. Like what motivated you to kind of keep thinking, what else can I do?
So two things. First was the people that loved and supported me. I really felt like I owed them more than I had been giving myself. And if they loved me, and if they felt like I was worth standing behind and supporting and, lifting up all of those times, to honor that, I had to try and do it for myself, and stop relying on them and leaning on them to make me more. The other was, there's so many days where you feel like you can't and you don't have it. And then 2 or 3 days later, there's a win. And they talked about measuring your successes when they started with the program, and it had very little to do with the scale. It was like, the first time I was able to walk without a cane. Then I realized I can get to a point where I can walk without a cane. Then there was, like when you first realize you've gone down a size, then it's from when you're not in plus size clothes anymore, you can wear regular clothes and shop at regular stores. There's a bunch of different tiny little moments, as you kind of go through that feel like wins. And when you get there, it wasn't a win you felt like you were going to have. I never felt like I was going to get out of the wheelchair, but I did. And then I never felt like I was going to be able to walk without a cane. I did. I didn't feel like I was ever going to get back to work. I did. So every time something you felt like was impossible for you happened, there's a moment, and I don't even know if I was aware or cognizant of it, but all the things you thought impossible, like if this one happened, then something else that I thought was impossible is also possible. So you kind of keep pushing forward into your next win that you felt like you'd never have. I know when I was always kind of overweight, I would look at other people and think, well, they just get to eat and they're not overweight. It's not fair. And I always felt like they were special, like there was something wrong with my body or wrong with my personality type. I would never have that. I would never be a healthy weight. I would never be a healthy person. They got to have whatever that special thing was, but I wasn't. So you start to realize it's not about special, it's about effort.
So how did you manage? Because at that point, I think everybody has days where they're motivated, and then there's days where you're not motivated.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with, your situation, I feel like on the days where you're not feeling motivated, there's a real chance to, take a few steps backwards. Like, how did you manage that general and consistent progress, as opposed to, because on those days where you were probably feeling like shit or you weren't seeing the progress, a lot of that negative self-talk can bring you not all the way back down, but down, right? How were you able to just maintain that positivity?
It did. There were several times that it did bring me all the way back down. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. As long as it's not my camera's dying, then I'm okay.
I think it brought me back down several times.
Okay.
I think, they talk about the climbing the mountain analogy, and then you slip and you go back down, and then you keep climbing back up. And there was a lot of backslides. There was a lot of lost ground. There was a lot of progress that I made that I would lose. There were a lot of moments where I was like, well, it's obviously the best that I was going to be, and it wasn't maintainable. It wasn't sustainable. I can't do better. I can't be better. Generally, it was somebody else. It wasn't me beating my head. It was somebody else loving me. And that didn't always feel super gentle. A lot of tough truths. A lot of people being very honest with me.
Okay.
I think finding some of the people that I did when I started trying to become more physical, more active, they will still, because there are still days or still periods, I would say, not days, where life gets hectic, it gets busy, you get focused on other things, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 weeks you haven't been to the gym.
Right.
The people, like the coaches that I have at the gym, they will message me.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Yeah.
What the hell? Get your ass back in here.
Yeah.
My husband said something to me one time, and it was like, I think when I talk about how little life I was living at one point, he, a couple of years into me trying to get healthier, fit, he was a little bit emotional, and he thanked me, and I was trying to figure out, like, for what? And he sort of pointed out that me changing my life and changing my habits and what was important to me didn't just change me. He's like, my life is different. The kid's life is different. Like, you've changed things for all of us, and it's so much better for all of us than it was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I think when I have backslides, and I still have backslides, I remember where I started. I remember what life was like for them. And I know, like, during COVID, I probably gained another 30 pounds back. Everything was closed. You're just sitting at home. But it's those moments where I'm like, okay, try again.
Yeah.
And I also really miss the community. Like, if I take time out, I miss the people that I work out with. I miss the trainers. I'm not terribly nice to them when I'm training, but we laugh really hard about it. I get to scream horrible things at them, and they enjoy it. Feels like, then they feel like they're doing a great job. But yeah, nobody lets me lie to myself, tell myself bullshit that I'm done, that it's over, that I hit that.
So when did you make the progress from, just kind of rehabbing and going from wheelchair to cane to not cane to actually going to the gym and being like, hey, I'm gonna box?
It was probably 2 or 3 years after the bypass, and I was walking. And I had lost like close to 200 pounds.
Yeah.
I felt like that was the most I was ever going to lose. I didn't think it was going to go any further than that, but I
Right.
was looking at having skin removal surgery done on my stomach. And I knew for healing, especially considering I have clotting issues, I needed to do something to get my blood moving, to get my heart healthy, to make sure when I had the skin removal surgery, I would come through it okay.
Right.
And there was a gym in Airdrie called White Collar Boxing, and they were promoting a ransom challenge. And what it was you paid sort of for the program, and I think it was, I can't remember if it was like I think it was an 8-week program. You do everything that they tell you to do. So they give you a food plan, they give you a training schedule, like you have to commit to certain number of hours per week training. You have to eat the food that they give you. And if you lose 6% body fat during the course of their ransom challenge, they give you your money back. I mean, generally, I think most people by that point then kind of just put that back into a membership because of the benefits of it. But I didn't consider that at the time. It just felt like a no-risk way to improve my health so that when I could survive the skin removal. So, and I thought to myself, I can stand there and swing my arms. It can't be that hard. No big deal. So hard. But I met some people there that really, like, I remember the first time I went, I was so overwhelmed. It was so outside of the realm of anything I'd ever done. And I had tried, during the course of all the fad diets to join different gyms. They can be not terribly welcoming to someone who is not fit already, who is not healthy, someone at the beginning. There can be a lot of, like teasing. I've walked out of a lot of gyms feeling worse about myself than I did when I walked in, which always surprised me because when you see someone there, they're trying to do better. They're trying to be more. So to not support that just felt so strange to me.
Yeah. Well, and especially because so many people that are in gyms were probably at that point at one time. And so it's weird that they aren't supportive. So it's sad because agreed, like that for someone in that situation, going there is a very hard thing to do. And they're in a very vulnerable position.
Huge.
Yeah.
Everything's moving, swinging.
Yeah.
It's
they're aware.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out. Kind of saw that already.
I felt that hit me in the head. Thank you.
But so then why did boxing stick then? Like as far as like that supportive
it was
culture.
The people there. It was the people there. The first time I walked in, there was somebody else in the class. So it wasn't even one of the coaches. But she showed me how to wrap my hands. And then I didn't know that there were different technical skills required to throw different punches, and that the punches had, they were very specific. I thought you kind of just wailed on something. But throwing a jab is specific. Throwing a hook is specific. Throwing a body hook is specific. A body punch, it's all got to be done like with your body planted a certain way, with your hands positioned a certain way. It's very technical. So this one girl had offered to share her bag with me to show me how to throw the different punches and how they were supposed to start a look for a beginner. Her workout was probably 50% compared to what she was used to because she spent most of her time trying to help me feel like I was going to be I fit. There was better. And every time I went back, I met more people who would help, who would support, who would encourage. The other thing was it's hard. Like the fitness is hard. And I know when I think about, like you had said you're a runner, I have tried to run, but when I'm running, all I can think about is the fact that I'm running, and I can feel my ankles, and I can feel my knees, and I can feel my chest, and I can taste the blood, and there's nothing else to sort of take me out of that. So when I'm running, I feel like I'm running, and it feels like running. It feels like work.
Yeah.
Because with the boxing, it's there are technical things to think about, and generally how it goes is you're either on a bag or you're on pads, and they just are yelling out numbers, and every punch has a number assigned to it.
Right.
So I would spend a lot more time thinking about the combination and hitting the punches and am I doing this right? And it would take me out of the fact that I was tasting blood and wanting to cry. Something else to focus on.
No, I get that. I just I've been learning yoga, and I realized that with yoga is, 30 minutes goes by and I'm like, oh, it didn't feel like 30 minutes, but it's because I'm focused on this and then I'm focused on that, and you're so focused on things that you're not in your own head, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, an hour, in a boxing class is over before you know it.
Yeah.
So I went through that ransom challenge with the group of people that were either doing the ransom challenge or members of that gym or coaches at that gym. I met incredible people. And I did it. I lost the 6% body fat.
Nice.
My heart health was healthier. I had the skin removal. I came through it pretty much okay. There were a few minor issues, but I had done it. And it sort of hooked me there. And then I realized, like, after my recovery, because I didn't actually plan on going back.
Right.
But after my recovery, I missed it. I missed those people. I missed moving. I missed getting out the aggression. I didn't realize what an incredible stress relief it was. So I started trying to, I went back. And I didn't go back at first with any regularity, but I went back. And I kept starting again. I'd go for a couple of weeks. And then I'd feel like, okay, I'm there, I have it, I'm fit again. And then I'd stop. And then I'd go back. And then something would happen, life would get busy, and then I'd stop. But every time I stopped, I missed it. I missed the people, I missed the environment, and I missed, that aggressive, And after a good workout, I used to take pictures to be like, you worked hard. I looked like I'd been hit by a bus. I dripping, sweat afro everywhere, makeup down here. I actually went to a convenience store to get some gum after one training session, and the person at the store asked me if they needed to call someone for assistance because I looked like I had been sobbing, just because it was rough. But I documented it because I was like, you put in that much work. You look like you are ready to be, medically assisted. They need to call somebody to help you because you tried.
Yeah.
And that feeling, it just kind of hooked me, and I kept going back. So after I had been doing it for a period of time, when I first started, I think it was shortly after one of their fight events. And I remember hearing the people talk about how they felt and what it was like. And there were a couple of people, and I don't necessarily know I got to know them, but I listened to how they felt when they talked about it. And I thought, man, that's not something I could ever do. I don't know how you get through something like that. They talked about the training, they talked about the fight, they talked about the event. But then after a couple of years of going, an event came up. And I was like, I wonder if I can. I wonder if I can get through the training like they did. I wonder if I could do what they accomplished, if I could be that person at class, on Monday talking about their fight while somebody new and foreign to it is listening, thinking, I can't do that. So I signed up.
And then, so this is when, your family for the most part was supportive of that, except for your daughter.
Not initially. Nope. Initially, when I signed up the first time, everybody I know was livid. Damon, who you know, I talked about the fight, and then a few weeks later, because I think I had asked him if he'd go or if he'd be my safety person, and then a few weeks later, I said something about the fight, and he's like, "Man, this is a long time to drag this joke out," and I was like, "I'm not joking." He's like, "You're actually you're gonna step into a ring, you're gonna fight," and I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Oh shit, sorry, I totally thought," which makes sense to me. My husband was furious. My kids were furious. My mom was furious. My brother called me an idiot. Like, everybody thought it was stupid, ridiculous, and dangerous. None of them were on board. By the time I finished training, and all of those people that weren't on board, that didn't want me to do it, at different points prevented me from quitting.
Interesting.
Yeah. I came home after a really difficult session kind of in tears, and I told my husband, I can't do it. I'm not enough. I can't get through this. I can't survive this. I'm not strong enough. I don't have what it takes. And he was like, nope, yes, you can. You'll go back tomorrow and you'll do it again. And he sort of pushed me. I was driving home from work one day talking to my mom, and my mom really didn't want me to do it. And I was talking about how challenging it was, and you know, I wasn't physically strong enough. I wasn't mentally strong enough. I was not going to be successful. And she sat on the phone with me for like 45 minutes telling me all of the reasons I could do it and the things that I'd already done that proved to her that I could do it. So sort of when I lost faith in myself, or when I felt like I was at my limit and I was at my max, those people who initially were like really not thrilled with my decision to do it were the reasons I didn't quit. They were the ones that pushed me forward. By the time I got to the fight, my mom still didn't want me to do it, but she stood ringside. My brother, who called me an idiot, walked me to the ring with Damon, you know, and it like arms in the air, really excited. My husband, I'd never seen anybody more excited about anything ever. When we were warming up in the shoot right before the fight, one of my coaches who was warming me up, she was laughing really hard. She's like, I just want to let him in. He's just pacing back and forth, and he was wired. The only person I think who never kind of got there was my daughter, who has a love-hate relationship with it. She loves that I push myself. She loves that I do it. She'll talk to her friends about it. She just doesn't want to know anything. She doesn't want to know or see or be confronted with.
Watching your mom get punched in the head probably is unsettling.
A little, yes. Not a fan of that part.
So I really love like the idea of the boxing, and I'm excited to watch you in your you know, for basically it's basically a 12-week journey from when you start in January to when you do it in March. And so I'm excited for that. One of the things that I always think about, and one of the reasons I started Explore 84 for myself is oftentimes I would have goals, not boxing goals, because I couldn't take a punch, but you have your goals, right? And then you have what I always found challenging was, so say for example, I wanted to do like a half marathon or a marathon or just something like that, and I would train for it, and then I would be in really good shape and I'd feel really good about myself, and then the next day it's like, okay, well, I accomplished my goal, and now it's kind of like the next day I'm going to just relax, and then the day after that I'm going to just relax. And then all of a sudden I look back and I'm like, oh shit, that was 2 weeks ago that I did that and I haven't done anything. And so then I just found myself going, like I was kind of on a roller coaster all the time. I'd go to this like really good spot, then followed by kind of like, you know, not rock bottom, but like not great. And I was always thinking to myself, I'm going to get to the bottom one day and I'm not going to be motivated to get back up, right? Yeah. And so for me, what I realized was I really need to focus on daily habits, so that, you know, my baseline is higher than you know, rock bottom. So for you, boxing is a goal, and I can see how excited you get for the training and stuff like that. Yeah. But outside of having that as your goal, do you have kind of daily or weekly habits? Because there's a baseline of health that you want to maintain outside of being a boxer. Yes. What do you do to really focus on your health, whether that's mental health, physical health, on a daily or weekly basis? So
I think there's two things. When you talk about like when you finish the half marathon and then you're going to take the day off to relax, like after the fight, I had that moment in my head, and I think it's the worst two words you can tell yourself, or the worst phrase: I did it, I'm done. And I think that done thing is where you sort of check yourself out of your goals and your progress and what you're doing. For me, one thing that helps is being accountable to somebody else, because it's really easy for me to not sort of push past it. I would say my daughter and my coaches. So two of the coaches that I had with White Collar Boxing have started another gym, boxing gym in Airdrie, Sprawl Boxing. because white collar is no longer operating as white collar. So they took their coaching experience from there. And so there are two things that sort of keep me going regularly. And I say that knowing I haven't been in 2 weeks, but I've been physical every day for those 2 weeks, just in a different way. I take my daughter with me. So she doesn't do the fight training with me. She doesn't do, it's usually separate from sort of the regular fitness boxing classes.
Right.
But I take her with me. So it's something that she and I do together. Coaches have adopted, one of the coaches that I have literally calls her, I sent her grad pictures and she's like, our kid's so cute. Like they really connected with her too.
Right.
So taking her, making sure she starts, I was never physical. She's physical with me all the time. We go in. I would say I'm a little bit competitive with her. And if she listens to this, she's going to laugh really hard that I said a little competitive. I'm pretty intense when I go, but she has a great time. She laughs really hard. She loves the coaches. So for me, I can use like my responsibility as her mother to make sure I'm giving her the opportunity to be fit and healthy.
Yeah.
I commit. I go with her. Like me being a good parent results in me also taking care of myself. The other thing is those particular two coaches are not shy about letting me know if they feel like I've checked out and I'm not. They will message me and be like, okay, lazy ass, get back in here. It's time. And so that'll help me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we were talking about before, when you're doing something that you've never done before, and what I love about your story is you've done a lot of things. You kind of hit a lot of benchmarks of like, you didn't think you could get here, you did. You didn't think you could get here, you did. And so when you boxed for the first time, because one of the things that I realized after I'd done my Ironman this summer, which I never thought I could do, and I felt like there was like this like before mentality and an after mentality. Did you get that when you were done your first boxing match?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got it a few different times along the way in a few different ways. But there's nothing about my history, my personality, who I am that fits with being athletic. I can't walk and chew gum. I have no grace, no skill. Never lived my life in any athletic way. I'm not strong. I have no special skills. I'm not special at all. So feeling like it doesn't fit. I realize that it's myself telling me that I don't fit, that I can't, that I don't. There were days like, the day where I mentioned going home and being really upset and talking to my husband and saying, I can't do it. I've already failed. It's over. The next day, strapping my gloves on and going back to training, that second day was probably the most difficult day I had during training. And that was odd to me considering how crushing the day before was.
Right. But
not stopping at that point and continuing and trying again the day after, significantly more challenging. But then you have a realization that you met the challenge, you did the thing. So there was the before me who didn't think I was capable of doing anything. And then when I stepped out of the ring, I realized I had no idea what I was capable of.
Right.
Because I had told myself I wasn't capable of anything. But I did it. I trained like an athlete for 3 months. I stood in front of 2,000 people at almost 45 years old. And I got through an entire 6 minutes of boxing, never even having watched boxing before.
Right.
So I think what I walked away with was the realization that we don't know where our limits are. And unless you push past where you think you were finished, you don't know what's next, what's possible, what could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because you talk so much about the people in your life that are supportive of you. Like your husband, a lot of people when they making improvements in their lives, like you have, it's actually the people closest to them that support them the least. And they almost like, and I don't know why that is. I'm not a psychologist, but it's almost like they are.
It's fear.
Yeah, like they don't want you to change because then they have to change. So the idea that your family has been so supportive of you, I think, is really special.
So that was something that actually really scared me when I started moving forward with the gastric bypass process and figuring out if I was going to have surgery or not. They actually talked about the number of marriages that end as a result because of that fear, because of that, having someone that you love become more somehow makes you feel less. And I was concerned. My husband has always been attracted to, curvy, bigger women. And yeah, they talked about, like, there was something like, I can't remember what the stat was they threw out, but of the people that were successful with the gastric bypass program, the married ones, they said something like 70% of their marriages end within a couple of years. Because I think there's a couple of factors. I think it's becoming better. I think it is placing value on the shallow things. And I had my moments, for sure. I remember my husband thought it was hilarious, but I worked evenings and weekends at Mark's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of men that come into Mark's.
Right.
So after a number of years and having lost some weight, I took my wedding rings off when I went to work at Mark's. And my husband asked me, he's like, "Where are your rings?" I said, they're upstairs in our room. And he's like, "Why aren't you wearing them to work?" And I'm like, "Well, because there's men that go into Mark's all the time. I just want to know if I'm cute now." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I think you're beautiful." And I said, "Well, I know, but you love me. I want to know if I'm like cute to other people now."
Yeah.
And he thought it was hilarious. But I could see how a lot of people would feel like it was upsetting.
Right.
It wasn't about like flirting with or meeting with or leaving my spouse. It was about wanting to know how I now appeared to the outside world, because I knew how I appeared to the outside world for a number of years before. I just wanted to know kind of when that was going to change.
Yeah.
And he thought it was hilarious. But I think there are a lot of people who would maybe push that a little further, try and meet other people. What else is out there? Or spouses that would be threatened by it or upset about it or jealous about it. He just understands how my head works and thought it was significantly entertaining. But me being more has never bothered him.
Nice. That's great.
I've always been bossy. I've always been controlling. I've always been kind of loud and inappropriate. Even when I wasn't fully living, I was a lot. My husband's fairly quiet-ish, depending on sort of the circumstances. He's not super social.
Yeah.
We joke all the time about his resting bitch face. When we go out, he tends to look more like a bouncer than like he just is. He looks like a crotchety dude. But we just, I don't know if it's balance or if we just fit, but he was never bothered by, in fact, I think he enjoyed the more confident I became, even if I was less curvy, less what he was physically attracted to, the more confident I became, the happier I became, the more attractive he found me, the closer we got, the more, so I think he was just, I think when you really love someone, like a true unselfish love, they come first. My husband has always loved me more than he loved himself.
And just watching you become, just seeing the confidence grow and seeing you become, I think it's the confidence of just seeing people become what they're capable of becoming.
Yeah.
One of the things, so with that in mind, it's interesting because when you have so many supportive people in your life and you realize that a lot of the things that you're not accomplishing, it's you that's standing in your own way. And so as you start checking these off and you don't have obstacles in terms of your family supporting you, but now you're realizing what you're capable of. So when you're done, so you're going to be in March, you're going to box.
End of March, early, like first week of April. Yeah.
Okay, so then what happens? Have you already thought about that in terms of like, what else are you capable of? What's kind of next on the...
Yeah, I joked about roller derby because I feel like it's got to be something equally stupid and insane. I know I will want to try something else. There was a period where, because there's another club that does sort of MMA training, and I was
Okay.
like, okay, so I've got the boxing part down.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens when I add.
So, but what would your daughter say if you started MMA? Is that better?
Pretty much hell no. I also realized like kickboxing and getting up and down from the ground, like doing ground and pound stuff without a working leg is probably not going to be my best. But I feel like I will need to learn something. There will have to be adrenaline. I don't know if it's like, rock climbing or skiing. Mm-hmm. It's going to have to be something fast and intense, but I feel like I could learn more, do more. Yeah.
And is that what you've been through, how does that change your perspective on things? Like, is it like once you check off that next thing, is your brain going, okay, what else am I capable of? Or what's your thought process there?
Always. I had a conversation with a girlfriend a long time ago, and she was mountain biking regularly, through the mountains. And this was when I was when I was overweight and not really doing much. And I remember having a conversation with her where she called me and she had a fall off her bike and she hurt herself. And I laughed at her and I was like, nobody gets hurt watching movies, dude. And I remember thinking that she was insane and she was doing it wrong because she was injured.
Right.
And that I was the normal person.
Right.
Now, like I've had a couple of fight injuries, but it's almost like a badge of honor. It's, during sparring training, I kind of I cracked my nose a little bit, but I was like, that's a pretty badass crack in my nose.
Yeah.
Those things feel, the first time I tried to do pull-ups, which I still can't do, I damaged the muscle in my arm pulling up so significantly that I got rhabdo. I had to go get IV treatments.
Wow.
But I was like, that's how hard I worked. And that felt, and then I finally understood why she was racing down the mountain in the rocks and how she felt and how much of a win that was. Yeah. And that I was the one that was not doing it right.
That's interesting. So when did kind of your, I was thinking about that from when you're in the state that you're in, you have that, your self-talk is negative. It is, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. When is it now more consistently, what else can I do? Yes, I can do that. Or are you still balancing that negative self-talk sometimes?
I'm still balancing.
Yeah.
I think I look at one of the things that they said, like when I signed up for the first fight, is that you need to take away your excuses. So I have to figure out a way to push myself past that self-talk. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, it's the feeling that I have something to prove and my pride. Yeah. So when I sign up for a new challenge, which will be in one of those moments where I wonder what else I'm capable of. Mm-hmm. When I sign up to do something else, the first thing I do is take away my ability to back out. So I will tell everybody I know that I'm doing this thing. Yeah. Because if they're aware, my feeling of having something to prove or my pride will prevent me from quitting somewhere along the lines. Yeah. That will help on those days where I have the negative self-talk, and the people that support me, that kind of lift me up, and I remember before the fight, because they were like the people my family, my friends, and the people that I work with, by the time I got to my first fight, they were invested. Like they were excited. They had bought tickets. They had supported. They had asked me about it. And I remember shortly before the fight having a moment of panic, and I was talking to a couple of guys that I work with, and they were getting excited about coming, and then all of a sudden I didn't want them to go. And I was like, you guys know I'm not good at this, right? Like you're not going to see I'm not, I will embarrass myself. You're going to watch this go horribly wrong. I have no skills. I have no coordination. I can't move my feet. Like, I'm not a good fighter.
Yeah.
I'm not a good boxer. I didn't want them to go. And one of the guys looked at me and said, we don't care. Are you getting into a ring? Because that is huge.
Yeah.
Most of the people that you know in this life would not do that.
Yeah.
What happens after you get into the ring doesn't matter. And it sort of took that, you know, but I have those moments where I'm like, oh, I'm going to embarrass myself. People are going to see it. And now, like, having done it once, it's bigger.
Yeah.
There are more people who are going to want to go. There are more people talking about it. I went to one of our office locations yesterday. They were talking about it, knowing I was on my way before I got in there.
Yeah.
And they were saying something when I got in the door. One of the guys that I work with was like, I was just talking to him about, you know, we're going to be there. We're going to be cheering you on. And I have moments where it's very vulnerable. Like, people are going to see me possibly embarrass myself. What if I get knocked out? If I trip over my feet and I fall down? If I, understanding that they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That, you know, that they're just supporting that I'm doing it, that I'm getting into the ring. I try and listen to those voices when mine are negative.
I like that. How important, because in everything that I do, the ability to look like an idiot is, you have to be able to be okay with that. Was that an easy thing for you to, like, you know, because you talk about that, like, you're getting in the ring, it's like, oh shit, by the way, guys,
people are going to see
I'm not good at this. And it's very vulnerable.
It
You're
is
putting
huge.
you're putting yourself literally in the center of a room, and everybody there is watching you, and they're watching you do something that you've never done before. You've never walked into a ring. So how important was just that to overcome that fear of looking like an idiot in the journey?
It's huge. I think I've practiced a lot. I embarrass myself on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah.
Like, I say the wrong thing at the wrong time. I am shy, and I usually feel like an idiot in social situations and will say something stupid. I've slipped, fallen. I embarrass myself regularly.
But not with hundreds of people looking at you.
Not like that. It's a lot, and it's still a lot. It's still bothering me. I still, like, you know, in discussing it with people who I know are supporting me, you still wonder, like, if they're gonna laugh at you at the end, if they're gonna think, like, you know, that was pretty fucking pathetic.
Yeah.
Like, it's in my head all the time, and I'm terrified of it. But I just circle back to, if I, you know, get my ass handed to me, if I get knocked out, provided I did the best that I could do, provided I worked as hard as I could possibly work, chances are it'll be like a funny story in the meetings, and it might sting a little bit, but they're not there hoping I embarrass myself. They're not there hoping that I fail. They're not there hoping, you know, that they get to laugh at something. They're there because they care. So if I embarrass myself in front of people that care, there's sort of a forgiveness and grace that comes with that. And the other, you know, 2,000 people that are there that don't know me are there because they're supporting charity. They have no skin in it. They're not invested in whether or not I do well or
Well, they might be betting.
They might be betting. Before my last fight, when we were kind of prepping and walking around, there was just somebody in the crowd who was like, he said, okay, I'm going to put $40 on you. And I went, don't do that, man. Go the other way. I am not the safe bet here.
Yeah, I didn't even put $40 on me.
I'm betting on Crystal yet.
So when was the first time that you ever realized that you were inspiring other people?
So that, I still struggle with a lot. But after the fight, so there was, I struggled a little bit in the gym, and one of the coaches there, he had been an EMT. He kind of reached out to me after a training session that was really difficult, and he, you know, to see if I was okay. And I was like, no, I'm not okay. I don't fit in here. I don't belong. You know, I can't do it. I can't keep up. I can't do what they can do. This isn't like, I'm not advanced enough. I can't be here. And it was probably his like Thursday or Friday night. And I have hours of texts of him reaching out, supporting me, lifting me up. And then he wound up being a coach. He selected, because you're at the weigh-ins before the fight, the different coaches who were involved, then pick who they want to corner. And he picked that he wanted to be in my corner, which was huge because he was one of the reasons I didn't quit, like before I had even signed up to fight, didn't quit going to that gym, let alone. And after the fight, he talked to me, and my mom has said it, and she's going to be mad at me because I kind of would laugh and blow her off, that I should write a book, or I should speak, or I should do something. And I was like, I've got nothing to talk about. I've got nothing to say. And she was like, no, you've done something that people can't do. And this particular coach at the after party said something significant about going from A to B, and how he felt like it was inspiring, which I kind of tried to blow off at the time because I find the whole concept of inspiring other people really uncomfortable. And he said to write it down, to write a book, to do something that my mom had been saying. And I laughed because I said, my mom's been telling me that forever, but I don't feel like I have anything special to say. I don't think I have anything to contribute. And he was like, no, this is huge. What you've done is huge. And he said, and if you can inspire one person to go from where you were to where you are, that journey, remember who you were and what your life felt like at that point. If you can help one person know that it's possible, like without seeing just the whole, like, here's the before, here's the after, to talk about the during and how many times you want to quit and how many times it's hard and how many times it hurts. And he said, you owe it to, the people that helped you get here. And that was the first time that I was like, okay, one person, I can do one person. And that's actually the reason when you asked me to do the podcast last time, it was that conversation with him that I was like, okay, maybe one person would hear that. One person would know it was hard. One person would know it's not straight to victory, that there are significant, times that you fall down or that it hurts or that you want to quit. And then actually having a conversation with Damon very recently, he said several things to me, and what he felt about what I've accomplished and who I am now and where I've come from, and that it's funny because it's not easy to hear, and it feels like responsibility, and it feels almost like imposter syndrome, like you don't deserve that kind of. But I know when he was speaking to me, it was truly from his heart and what he felt and what he saw. So maybe it doesn't matter if I feel like I'm inspiring, if somebody is inspired.
Yeah, and you didn't do it with the intention of inspiring people. It's when you look at the collective, journey of what you've done, it just is inspiring. And so that's part of it, right? Is like the fact that someone can look at you as an example to say, like, I can do this, like whatever their, rock bottom is, like, and it's going to be a hard journey. It's not an easy journey. Like you said, it's not a direct, like, the graph doesn't go straight up. The graph does a lot of this, but the overall trajectory is up. If someone is listening right now and they are kind of on their rock bottom and knowing that you've been there, is there any advice you would give someone just kind of to make that first step?
I would say the first thing is to understand that you don't have to be special. You don't have to be equipped in any certain way. You don't have to have a special personality type, a special set of skills, a special drive, anything. Anybody, and I truly believe anybody could do the same or more or better. It doesn't take something specific, some miracle, something about you to make it possible. I am not exceptional or remarkable in any way. I am not special. I was supported and loved by the right people, which helped. And the other thing I would say is that you don't have to take it all on at the same time. That there are small pieces, I think building one small habit. Like, something that sounds so ridiculously easy, but is such a great place to start. Like just, start drinking your water. start with one small piece. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight and become something different. And then the last thing I would say is that people need to be kind and forgive themselves, because there are going to be falls. There are going to be, when I started trying to lose weight, I would lose a little bit and then gain twice as much. And I failed. And then I would be angry at myself, and then I would give up, and then I would quit because I failed. Obviously I can't do it. I don't have what it takes. But it's not failing. It's learning another thing that doesn't work for you and another thing that could. So those moments where you fall down, the falling down isn't important. The getting back up is.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. The minimum is so important. Like, so many people, they get motivated to just, like, they're like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this, and then inevitably they burn out,
it's
right?
Too
because
much.
so the problem with minimum habits is that people think, well, I can do more than that. It's like, you can, but start there and just build on that. That's so important, to just have your easy daily wins. Yeah.
Well, and I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves to eliminate everything that's unhealthy, to change all of it at the same time.
Yeah.
And that will absolutely 100% of the time set you up to fall.
Yeah.
Because change, human nature, we resist change, period. It's just who we are. And if you change everything at once, it feels deprivational. It feels too big. It's too extreme. It's too hard. It's too much.
Yeah.
If you take little bites, change little pieces at a time, you'll find that you change more over the period of time than you would have been capable of all at once. And you can sustain it. You can keep going. You can keep living. One of the, with bypass, their success rate is actually not that significant. There's a lot of people, like, everybody loses weight, but you can undo it. You can, you can't eat a huge ton of food at a time, but you can eat every 20 minutes and what you choose to eat. There's a lot of people that will, again, revert back to their original bad habits, to, they're not successful like a year post-op, the results change. 5 years post-op, over half of the people who've had bypass have gained the weight back. So I'm probably 8 years post-op. I haven't gained the weight back. I have gained weight, through the course of it, like 20, 30 pounds up, 20, 30 pounds down. But it's the small pieces that I built on. My biggest thing for me is I refuse to be lazy.
Yeah.
I can't even sit down and watch a movie anymore. I sat down for 2 years. I can't do it now.
Yeah.
I need to move.
Totally.
I need to get up. I need to do something. And, I made fun of it frequently.
Yeah.
But that energy that I have now, that's something that I kept the entire time, and that sustains all of the other little habits that I built.
No, it's awesome. I'm excited to watch you for the next 3 months, and I'm gonna come.
Good.
And I'm gonna bet. I'll bet Damon. I'll bet on you. He can bet against you. That bastard.
He won't.
Yeah. No. I know. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and thanks for staying in touch, because it's been fun to kind of watch you continue to progress, continue to kind of set the goals and achieve them, and I'm excited to watch you.
Thanks. I'm mostly excited to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, enjoy Christmas, because
Thanks,
the training starts right after Christmas.
Yeah, it really does.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.